Right, it is prep time. Alison,
Yes.
hello.
Hi.
Who are you?
I
How did you get involved with prep? Why are you here? What is your role? All of these questions about prep, please.
um
Are we going to start again? No
can start
problems.
again.
Hello.
Hi, a lot of stuff has just come up. So,
yes. Welcome to this.
As we were saying,
sorry guys.
No
all
worries.
good.
We had a similar thing yesterday where it felt like we were in a hospital room where Sally came running up like, make space, make space, make space, and dropped a bone off. And it's like,
That's good. We want to hear about that. You know, that's one of the nice things about being in the prep tent is that it's just such a hive of activity. You know, people are running in and out. I didn't even know when to start this video, but we've started now. This is the start. It is crazy in here. There's so much going on.
it's been quiet all day.
It's been quiet all day until we decided to record.
Yes.
So Alison, thank you very much for taking the time
You're very
to
welcome.
talk to me and to do this prep stuff.
Yes.
We have a box of fossils here,
Yes.
which came from the very first time that we visited. We dug over the Jurassic stuff with Sally and Nev, got out some ammonites and some other bits, so it'd be good to take a look at those.
Yes.
But first, I want to talk about you. So, what is your background and how did you end up volunteering here in the prep tent?
So, my original background was stud manager. I trained and sometimes, yeah, I was basically the stud trainer for the most part, and sometimes we had mares who had foals. And
Right.
then my job was there to make sure that everybody stayed alive, everybody got fed, everybody was halter tame or rideable or ready to go to shows, and we would take them to shows, etc., etc. Lots of things have happened. I ended up needing to change careers and found that I no longer wanted to be working with living things. So
Yeah.
then I dabbled around in wildlife postmortems briefly, since I'm from Namibia.
Whoa. Yeah,
Then
okay, wow.
Found that although it was going to be quite interesting to deal with the things that happen more naturally, I would also be exposed to all of the poaching side of things, and I
Okay.
did not want to be seeing what happens with poachers and wildlife and all the things that happen in between there. And I stumbled across a YouTube video of Borrelia pelta being prepared.
Right.
And that started me down a rabbit tunnel of very, very long hours of research and figuring out how, as a Namibian, to get into fossil prep, because I had decided that that was what I was going to do. I spoke to our local natural history museum and I asked them if there was a paleontology department, because after wandering around I hadn't found anything even remotely dinosaur related. They looked at me and went, "What is paleontology?"
Oh, wow.
Pointed me in the direction of archaeology. Archaeology said, "Oh, you know what, you actually have to go to the mineral museum, and there is a paleontologist." We have about 2 paleontologists in Namibia.
In the whole country.
In the whole country, and no preparator. And my original goal was, okay, I will go and get trained somewhere and I will come back and I will work as Namibia's preparator.
First and only preparator.
We've got some prep tools, and sometimes things have to be prepared in Namibia, especially if they get research, but oftentimes they get sent off to South Africa or other places, and then people there prepare them and people write their papers and things on there. And I wanted more Namibians to know that we actually have an amazing variety of fossils,
Yeah.
and that we have we have some really cool things in Namibia. Anyway, so then I was put in contact, so from Halke it was then put into contact with Roger Smith, who then put me in contact with Claire Browning, and Claire said, "Well, let me meet you, let's chat for a bit, figure out what it is that you want out of this." We met up and she was like, "I can offer you a volunteership, but I can't help with anything else."
Okay.
This was then in the Eco Museums of Cape Town.
Right.
I said, right, if this is what I want to do, then I'm going to have to make it work. I sold my horses. I used that alongside a lot of help from my ex-boyfriend and my now ex-boss, and then also worked part-time at a doggy daycare while I was in Cape Town.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was working from 10 to about 4 or 5 in the afternoon at the museum as a fossil preparator, 4 days a week, and I was helping Amy in the museum design and display department on Wednesdays. So that then was that, and when after my year, because I only had a year option, I was like, okay, now I need to find work. I stumbled across James and started working at the Yorkshire Natural History Museum. I had hoped that I wouldn't necessarily be the lead preparator and that someone would be able to offer me more guidance. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Then
You were straight in as lead.
yes. Also, completely new fossils, completely new matrix, but some really fantastic pens. I met some fantastic people who to this day are still massive support pillars around us. And we ended up doing last year's dig and also thrown into the deep end there where I had to learn an awful lot and long conversations with Nigel, long conversations with a lot of people on how to conserve relatively young fossils and what the process is for that, and reading lots of papers and doing a lot of research. And on top of that we had the interns and all sorts of other things. So we did last year's dig. It went as well as last
Pretty
year's
well,
dig went.
yeah.
And then Sally asked whether I could come back for this year's dig, and this year, because I am also working, I was only able to be here for a little bit in the front at the beginning of the dig and a little bit at the end of the dig. Oliver, co-founder, was here throughout the entire dig, and he's been helping the whole way through with mostly keeping all the numbers in order and making sure that every fossil is numbered and labeled and that everything is being kept track of and that nothing is misplaced or any of the above. And that's how I got to here.
Yeah, that is probably the furthest anyone's come and the most, I guess, all-in approach to your role. It sounds like you just absolutely dropped everything, bet all on black, and here you are.
It was a bit like that. I think from finding that YouTube video, within the next 6 months, I had made up my mind, and that was it.
Yeah. Shows the importance of paleontological videos.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Important work.
Yeah.
So, right. You have been, as you said, preparing all different sorts of things. We have mammoth bones, we have ammonites, we have a lot of different things. A lot of different things probably need a lot of different prep techniques and materials and approaches. There's a whole load that I learned. Even just like, I found a tiny little slither of bone in the pit. And Kieran was telling me, like, it's got to go in a plastic bag, and immediately you see the condensation shooting out of it because it's drying up straight away. There's tons of stuff that you don't really realise about prep work. So how complicated is it? There's stuff all over this desk, bottles, glues, pipettes, you name it, it's here. How varied is this work? What are the types of things that you've got to do? And what kind of, I guess, workflows do you do?
So in an ideal world, we would be in a humidity controlled, temperature controlled room.
This isn't normal, is it?
Nope.
We're in it, like, off to the side. We're in an open-sided tent, which you can't see, but yeah.
And we would be allowing especially the big bones and the big fossils and the tusks to dry as slowly as we can manage. So preferably 6 to 12 months, sometimes longer if needed, because the quicker you dry something out, the more likely, especially in this environment, especially with these specific fossils, they like to dry out and crack.
Right, I can see that.
One of the things that had me the most nervous throughout all of this, and this year they seem to be behaving themselves and they seem to be following instructions, are mammoth teeth.
Okay.
We often refer to them as the canaries of paleontology.
Right.
If there is a problem with how you have conserved them, they will be the first ones to show that. If there is a problem with humidity, with temperature, with any of the above, they will be the problem child. They look fine on the outside, and then on the inside they have begun to crumble and fall apart, and then they will slowly start to show some cracks on the outside, and then you go to pick them up and they just die.
Oh dear. That sounds like you're talking out of experience, or is this...
Unluckily not. No.
Good.
But that's what you read about, and those are the horror stories, and you avoid those at all costs.
As I would have thought, you know, like a mammoth tooth, you know, that's enamel. It's a solid chunk, block of fossil. I thought that would have been the most resilient. But there you go, it shows that...
We're very fortunate that on this site our bones are typically very strong, very robust and very durable. They come out this wonderful chocolate brown. I don't know whether the camera will pick them
no,
up.
we would have to...
This is not a good example, but it's the example that I can reach.
It's an example that shows that it's cracking a bit.
This is how it came out of the field. So
Okay.
it's had a lot of weathering, it's had a lot of things. But this lovely honeycombing.
Could I...
Yes?
Yeah, so the honeycomb in there, on that side, and then that's the more chocolatey coloured splodges on here.
That's actually a much better version.
Go on.
Um,
Glamorous assistant helping.
yes. This lovely colouring.
Mm.
They are stable, they behave themselves. They are very stable, very robust, and we are not always this lucky when it comes to a lot of things.
Is that a piece of bone, tusk?
Yes,
or-
this is bone.
Okay. Yeah.
Rough guess, I am not very good with my anatomy. I'd say, just because of the shape, something limmy.
Limmy.
I'm not going to guess anything
I'm
further
not going
than
to guess
that.
anything further than that because I know nothing about bones, so...
Yeah.
But someone will.
Someone will. Typically the honeycombing structure like this, and someone in this tent could correct me, is indicative of skull.
Ooh. Wow. Okay, I was just holding a skull, possibly. Didn't even know it, so
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
So skulls are full of lots of honeycombing, and mammoths and other elephants show that the best. Yes, so bones, things like that,
Yeah.
they need a lot of attention and things like that. So we want them to dry slowly. If we can't let them dry too slowly, then we end up using acetone and paraloid to, one, clean, and then to conserve and reinforce and build support and allow them to stay stable, and then they can be studied, researched, put on display, put in a box and labeled and numbered.
Yeah, that's that glue that we've heard a lot about.
Yes.
Is it this?
That is acetone, very,
Oh.
very, very mucky acetone.
That's the base of what that glue is,
yes,
though.
this is the glue.
Yeah.
Very mucky glue. This is paraloid 5%.
And that's dissolved in the chemical acetone.
Yes.
And then acetone, the chemical, will get rid of it as well. So
yes,
it's
will.
like a
It's completely
non-permanent.
reversible,
Yeah.
which makes it museum grade as well. So if we,
Here's one we prepared earlier.
this is a 5% as well. It's also not totally clean. We have got clean and shiny versions that we don't contaminate.
That would be better for camera.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do usually have clean versions, and then we have the contaminated ones where we just try and keep the contaminated and the clean, and then when it's contaminated beyond use, then it usually has evaporated as well by that point.
Yeah. So 5%. There's different percentages.
Yes.
What are
So-
the different percentages of this glue used for?
Well, the different percentages just represent how much acetone versus paraloid is in there. The thinner is what we typically start off with, because it goes into your smallest cracks the best. It fills in all of those tiny nooks and crannies the best. And the thicker you get, the more gummy it gets.
Okay.
So it kind of turns into something of a similar texture as melted Haribos.
Melted Haribo. So more like a super glue kind of.
No, so
It's like a gloopy,
yes,
really
gloopy, thick. You can tacky it
Yeah.
up, and you can enamel it, and those that does not go into your small cracks. And for bones and teeth and other things, we want it to go into every single nook and cranny, and we want it to fill up everything from the inside, so that it can preserve and conserve and reinforce the insides of things as much as on the outsides. The outsides are the pretty bits to look at, but
So is it like right to say that the thin glue is kind of like a consolidant and a protective-y
Yes,
type of thing,
and then the
the
thick
thicker one
becomes a glue.
sticks
Yes.
stuff together.
Yes.
And all of it is reversible.
Yes.
As soon as you want it all to get off, just cover it in acetone.
Yes.
Brilliant. And that takes our bones that we have here from the field and gets it to the museum without
Yes.
them being further damaged.
So you can do all of this where you can bag up all of these bones, wrap them in paper towel and send them to a museum, and then you can do it. It becomes a labor of love at a museum in better controlled conditions, in better environments, and you can do it slower and you can do it little bit by little bit, because like with these big bones, we would ideally like to give them time to slowly dry out. The pushing them a little bit does leave more room for error.
Yeah, for sure. But you've got so much material coming out, you know. This table is like a
Everything on this
operating
table is
table.
only from the last 2 days.
it's like a triage
Except
in a
this.
hospital.
This
You
is-
know, things are just flying in and you've just got to deal with it
Yes.
best you can, because if you don't, then nobody is. And
Well-
it will just be wrapped in paper until someone in a museum can deal with it, right?
And we've got fantastic museums who are willing to take all of this, who are willing to store it, who want to put it on displays, and it's really exciting for all of that, and we're very happy to do that. Yes.
Whew, look at that rib.
It,
A rib on the table. Can you...
Oliver is very proud of this rib. It is incredibly
I'm proud
smooth.
of that rib. Wow.
You can touch it. It's very,
Can I
very
hold
smooth.
it?
Yes.
I really don't know what to do. I feel so like,
Ribby.
don't break it. That's insane.
We had some full-sized ribs here on site about 2 days ago. They've been taken off-site now to keep them safe and out of the heat. And we were all making interesting comments, and we would all have loved to have had spare ribs.
Yeah, they would have been pretty
they
big.
were-
What is this?
Um,
Do we know?
I'm
Or just the rib?
assuming
It's just the rib.
just a rib.
Just the rib.
Not
Someone will know, but at the moment it's a rib that we have found. I'm taking credit for this now. It's a rib that it's a rib that I have found and preserved. So I'll be sending this to a museum, and if it's a new species, it'll be named after me. Brilliant. Right. So, you know, we get this stuff in. We've conserved it now. It's not just the bones though. We also have ammonites as well. And the box of stuff that we got from the first day that we came here, I just pull out a random ammonite. So you're conserving ammonites as well. It's not the same as bone.
No.
How does this differ? What are we going to do with this? What would you do with this? And why?
So one of the main key things is the wording used. For a lot of this, we refer to it as conservation, and for all of this, we generally refer to it as preparation.
Sorry.
No,
It's
it
good.
is
It's good information.
Yes. So all of this is being conserved and preserved, and it's a spa treatment for the bones, whereas this is a lot less maintenance, and you can stick a number on them, put them to the side, and grab them out when you need them. They
Yeah.
are not typically. There might be one or two in there that do cause problems, but typically you can just about ignore them. Once they're out the ground and numbered, you can just
Yeah, there's ammonites everywhere.
yeah.
I mean, look at this one. Yeah, that's massive. I don't know if you mind me showing that,
You can-
but that is huge. It's just down here.
It's Mark's next project.
I hope Mark is okay with me doing that. If
He
not,
hasn't seen it yet. It came up while he wasn't here.
sorry.
So this one, it would be prepared. We would remove some of this excess matrix here to make more of the ammonite visible. We'd remove some bits here, and we'd open up the middle, and it would be left looking pretty and complete, and probably put on display, but also it could then be measured and used as reference or whatever for whoever wants to do papers, research, comparisons, whichever you want. But that is basically the gist of what would happen with this, is that the middles would be prepped out, the excess matrix would be removed, and that would be that.
Okay, so there is like a bit of detail. It looks like some of the original, or like slightly altered shell is still visible, which is the white stuff. So it's still dirty as well. There's stuff that I can get out with my fingernail there. Would you stick it in a bucket of water, give it a good scrub with a brush?
These ones can usually come off quite nicely with a bucket of water.
Yeah.
It's not going to really do it much harm. It might take some of the white off, but this is fairly stable white. It's only coming off minorly.
Yep.
Otherwise, do not paraloid that, because the paraloid will make it look much less powdery. Because it
Okay.
is a bit of a powdery substance. If you didn't want to wash it, that would also be fine. So it would basically just be prepared. And the main goal with all preparation conservation is do as little damage as possible. And even
Yeah.
if you are making it more visible, even if you're making it more presentable, you are still altering it from its original state. And the
Okay.
less you tamper with something, the better off it is. Typically.
Excellent. Okay.
Typically.
Yeah, so this is a very ridgy ammonite. So if you can see all of the lines, those are actually in 3D as well. And some of them have some of that sediment in those grooves in between the ribs. So you can do some pretty fine prep work, and some people are exceptionally skilled at doing that kind of stuff. Would you ever, could you ever prepare that material out? And two, with something like this, would you ever be bothered? Is it worth doing such fine work as that?
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, step one. But also, it would depend on what you want out of it.
Okay.
If you are looking at this to be a very sentimental display piece on your shelf and mantle, I probably would.
It will be
Yes.
someone's.
It probably would be nice to remove as much of the matrix as possible to make
Yep.
it look as pretty as possible.
Okay.
If you are prepping it to add to a vast collection where it will all just be compared, you probably wouldn't do as much. On the other hand,
Yeah. So you get rid of that bit. That looks
Yes.
easy to get rid of, and then you've got
a really lovely middle will pop up there. Unfortunately, you are missing some bits here, but it's still
Yeah.
it's all important information.
exactly. So that's like the inside of the ammonite here, and that's like the shell bit, the powdery white.
So it still would be shell. It would just be different layers of shell.
Ah, okay.
The insides, if you've got one that's snapped in half, you can sometimes see the interior construction.
Yeah. I do not know if we've actually got one snapped in half. I think these are all like really nice, just like complete ammonites, which we can do.
This one is really nice because it's got a whole lot of other things attached to it. So you could then choose to have your preparator either leave some bits on there and leave it as a wonderful piece where you can see a lot more of the life and the life diversity that was going on at the time, because you've got little bivalves, you've got little gryphea, you've got all sorts of things in here that you could choose to leave on here, and that would then show more,
Yep.
or you could remove it completely. That would be between that would be a discussion for you and the person who ends up preparing it.
Okay. This one is pretty bonkers. This has so much material in it. And so all of this is, if you wanted to conserve it, you got wood there, that would probably need
paraloiding because it's going
needs
to crumble.
Yeah, it's getting dry.
You could burn that if you wanted to. It
You
would
could-
burn.
Are you kidding?
And it's really dry now. I don't know whether yours will be good enough, but you can, when it gets to that stage, you can put acetone or paraloid over it, and then you can hear it pop. Because,
Can we do it?
yes.
Yes. You can't say that and then us not do it.
Would you like to do it yourself? I can hold it.
All right, okay. So what's this one?
That is the paraloid 5%.
5%. So this
Yes.
is the consolidant, and it's
Yes.
going to pop.
Hopefully.
Right, hang on. Let me get my microphone off. We'll lose the magnet. Okay. I can't hear anything.
It might not be
What
quite
what is
dry
it
enough.
that's going to pop?
It's as the wood expands and breaks and snaps. So
Oh, wow.
I've heard it, and it really just sounds very much like snap, crackle, and pop. So this bit might not have reached that level
Dryness yet. It's been kept inside.
Yep. Then it probably. But it is a very strange.
I can hear it a little bit. I think the audience might be able to. In the comments. Well, there we go. Bit of live paraloiding.
Yep.
And that bit of wood is now conserved?
So for wood,
Ish.
because wood is a pain in the neck,
Yeah.
you would need to do multiple layers and multiple thicknesses over quite a few days, weeks, and then every few months check on it again, because it does like to continuously just continue to dry and to continue cause problems.
Brilliant.
And sometimes you can't rescue it, and that's that. But this is a really lovely. So this one is broken. You can kind of see your interior structure there,
Yep.
and the different spaces and things that would then be filled with either air or water, depending on where the ammonite wanted to be in the water chamber, in the
Yep.
water levels.
That's
water
awesome. And
chambers.
we've got some belemnites and
Looks
another
like you've
little
got
ammonite or
another
something.
ammonite popping out there.
Tons of stuff in there.
Lots of little bits and pieces. Lots of negatives.
So you could, I guess, work through this, try and expose some of the ammonites.
Yes.
I guess the rock is probably a lot harder than anything else here. Would it be worth going through?
It would depend on...
Would you just take a hammer to it? I'd just crack that open with a hammer and
It depends
probably
on
break
what you
that.
want out of it. Again, if you
Yeah.
wanted to show the biodiversity of it all, you wouldn't do that. You would very carefully try and delicately prep out each of these little things, and you'd have a whole popcorn block. If you only wanted the ammonite, yes, use a hammer
Use a hammer.
and a chisel. Chisel would
Yeah.
probably be helpful.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think then that we are okay with these until we are able to prep them out with one of the pneumatic little drills. So what are those, and air compressor things? How do they work?
So the pneumatic drill tools do work with compressed air. I can actually steal Mihai's briefly. It's going to make a popping noise. So this is the one that we have on site. It is the Zoic Maya. Ah, we've got a nice little... That's a very nice middle.
We like good middles
Yep,
on our
middles
ammonites.
are great.
Yeah. So, yep, you'd use one of those to get the middle plug
Well,
out of.
this is certainly a tool that you could use. There are many tools. This is one of my favorites. It comes with various different sizes and chisel tips and points and whatnot, and then you can, depending on what you're trying to do at that moment, you can then choose which tip or chisel tip or whichever would be the most appropriate, and you work your way from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So to get the essentially belly button fluff out of this ammonite, is that the first time we've
I've
called it
not
that?
heard that one before, but it's accurate.
It suits so
It
well
suits.
though. So to get the belly button fluff, we'd use one of those
Yes.
and just blast it out.
This matrix is very hard, so yes, you would need a decent tool, but other options could potentially be air abrasive, where it's basically just sandblasting and acid prep, and then if you are very fortunate and very lucky, you have super soft matrix, and you can just take a lollipop stick and brush the matrix off.
Oh, that would be something.
Yes.
But unfortunately not here.
No, here we
So-
have very solid,
Fluff.
yes,
Compacted belly button fluff.
yes.
I'll stop saying that now. I'm sorry, everyone. Right, but yeah, I think we are all good for keeping our ammonites safe and as well prepped as they can be until we can get them under one of these pens. So thank you very much for showing us your trade, and
You're very
brilliant.
welcome.